All right, we had a chance, as I said, to speak to Valerie Plante, Montreal's mayor, earlier today. A long interview, and we'll provide a link for that a little later. But I began by asking her about housing. So this is interesting because we had a federal budget just now 2 days ago, and I know you commented because, as you just said, there is money for housing. It's one thing to announce it, it's another to do something.
Absolutely.
With it, right? So that's
right.
been a bit of an issue for your administration. We announce a lot of things, they don't all get done. How will this be any different?
I would say that the fact that the three levels of governments are at the same place, seriously, it's huge. For example, we will be presenting very, very soon, like in the next few days, what we will be doing with the Hyperdrome, something that we've been talking about a lot, because there's so much going on, so much potential. It belongs to the city, this territory. So, but what we were dealing with is how are we going to build all the infrastructure, which means the pipes, the transportation, the parks, the schools, and this time, we've decided to work with the two levels of governments. They embarked in the adventure. I'll say the adventure because it's huge, and we will be presenting very soon how we want to create thousands of units for Montrealers, but having in mind how to make it good at the beginning, including transportation. Because one of the things we realize is that if we build, the potential of Hyperdrome is building a city within the city. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of units, but we cannot think like just do housing without thinking about where do kids will go to school, how people will have access to transport or to Cavendish or to get out of this area.
So Cavendish?
Oh, yeah, bring it. I'm ready. I'm ready for Cavendish.
We're going to talk about some major gridlock there because with Royal Mount coming in there, thousands and thousands. I mean,
but I'm just
nobody's going to bring a car anymore.
You just said a plan, an actual plan for Hippodrome?
Yeah. Because
and you're going to announce this?
I would say give us few days. It's coming up because the idea, we're there. I was able to bring together other, not only provincial and federal, but also private promoters and constructors and builders. How are we going to develop it, knowing how much money we're going to need, because the city cannot take it by itself.
Just to develop it.
Yeah.
Your original, I remember the big press at the time conference where you had this idea, I think we saw a schematic of some kind, where if whatever you developed at Hippodrome was going to involve no cars, it would involve electric transportation, connection to the metro. Is that still, I mean, I know you're not going to tell us what the plan is, but is it that part of the plan?
Definitely, because we and when I say no cars, it's just like we cannot build, like, let's say approximately if we have like, I don't know, 10,000 units. Yeah. We cannot think like before and say 10,000 units, then 10 new parking spots. It doesn't make sense. Cities cannot be built this way anymore because our network, like our roads, are not going to be able to absorb it. So when I say no cars, it's to limit cars. But for that to happen, there has to be options of transportation. We cannot tell people no cars, but just find a way to get out of that area. So this is why I'm proud that when we will be announcing the kind of master plan, but also how we were able to engage federal, provincial, and builders into creating the city within the city in a good, coherent way.
Okay, so that, if you had not heard that or understood that, the city plans to announce, I'm told now it might even be as early as tomorrow, what they plan to do to develop the Hippodrome. And I know I'm seeing a couple of texts already saying, yeah, I've been hearing this for the last 10 years. I think the difference this time, and the mayor noted it, is that this is not just about the city and where we get the money from for infrastructure, because it's a huge plot of land, obviously, but apparently now everyone is on board. So municipally, provincially, and federally. So now there's a bigger pot of money, apparently enough to the city to say, okay, here's the plan, here's what we're doing. We'll see if there's a date tied to it. But this would seem to me to be the biggest announcement yet with respect to the Hippodrome. And obviously, if there's an announcement re the Hippodrome, there has to be an announcement re Cavendish Boulevard, because it's going to have to connect one way or the other from the Met, right? From the Trans-Canada. So again, tomorrow, maybe beginning of next week, but that is apparently what's coming. We move from that on housing to talk about downtown. This is one of my pet peeves, of course. We don't necessarily see eye to eye. Here's how that went.
The fact that we need to, we're kind of rebuilding the city is a fact. I mean, I think we can all agree that infrastructure, like the water pipes are old. I need to do it. Like St. Catherine, that's why there's so many construction. And the fact that there's, towers with housing that is being done, I think we all agree to say we're happy that this is happening. But it creates a bit of chaos. And we're trying to manage the chaos, working with the different companies and private owners in the city as well to make sure that it's cleaner. So we did, there's many pieces we've put together. That being said, for the parking, it's important for me to remind everybody that there's so much parking available. And I know that there's always this like on the street versus.
No, there isn't.
I cannot, Aaron. I'm sorry, because if you want to park on the underneath parkings are available.
Place Ville Marie is some of the most expensive parking in the city.
Yeah.
Place Montreal Trust, not far behind. Look, I realize, we kind of kid when we talk about this, but it is tough.
I understand.
We're happy when we can find a meter.
I've heard too many people say, I went downtown. I think, I was ready to spend 5 or 10 minutes to find a spot. I drove around for 35 minutes. I found nothing. I left. Mm-hmm. That's not the kind of thing you want to hear. And you can't create streets. I understand that. But I think one of the more frustrating things as well is you come and find a parking spot, and then there's something going on. They have a sticker on it that you can't. I don't know who's in charge of that, but
the red hoodies.
Somebody. Yeah. It's just a situation where we should say, look, either we want to have people come downtown and make parking available because not everyone is coming by metro or by bus.
I understand, of course.
There's something that has to be done. I don't have the answer to what it is.
But again, there's still like a lot of parking on the street, which is less expensive, but there's a lot of parking underneath buildings. And if you go in other cities as well, big cities, this is what they will privilege, is to take cars out of the streets and put them underneath. But I hear that maybe it might be more pricey, but so there's the two options as well. And the last thing is we want changing the meters, but also a way to make sure that they're available for people that comes to shop, because originally what we realized by doing with the data is that some workers, and I hear them, but they would park there for like half the day for their shift and leave their car all day there. So this is where, for me, it's acupuncture. There's not one solution. We need to look at every business streets. How can we accommodate? How can we keep some parking? It's not a once for all solution.
I will point out, though, we have lost downtown parking lots. We used to actually have parking lots. They're gone. They're now condominiums. So all those spaces that could have accommodated hundreds of cars have now been turned into condominiums. So all that parking is gone. So I think we have to take that into account.
Turn into what?
Condominiums.
Housing. Yeah.
So those are all gone.
Yeah.
Look, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about bike paths.
Yeah.
So I have an idea. I'm going to run it by you now.
I'm listening.
I live in Griffintown.
Yes.
Griffintown is a disaster in terms of trying to get around. I don't know whose plan it was. I'm thinking the previous administration who decided to let all these buildings be put up, and then with all these buildings and all people coming in, narrow the streets so it'd be harder to get around, which is reverse genius.
Yeah.
But I wonder now, can we finally get to a point where in Montreal, and you're right, I agree, we can't make more roads. Mm-hmm. We're stuck with what we have. We have more cars. It's harder to get around. But what can we do to accommodate motorists in the city? I know your focus is on bike paths and that kind of mobility, but what do you say to motorists who complain that, it's too hard to get around the city? There's too much construction all happening at the same time. There's no organization around those sites. What can we do?
Aaron, I have to say and I hear everything you're saying because I get the messages, by the way. I get people talk to us, write to us, so we're aware. But to say that my priority is bike path and not roads, to me, is a false assumption because it's not true. It's just because when you look at the territory, over the 10,000 kilometers of roads, 1% is dedicated to bike path. So at one point, we also need we need to start from the same place. And the downtown core, you were talking about Griffintown. I agree that Griffintown, the way it was made, is actually the example I don't want to reproduce with Hippodrome in terms of planning ahead. So first of all.
Okay.
Second of all, the fact that the city, we need to redo huge pipes, which, contributes to all the Montrealers to have water. It's not. I don't wake up in the morning and saying, I'm going to dig this hole, and it's going to be painful for motors, for people in their car. No, but at one point, the downtown core. This is where there's been, and even the previous administration under Mr. Coderre, agreed, and he started this plan of saying, you know what, we cannot just shuffle the problem in the front like it's been done by previous administration. If there's one thing on which I agree with Mr. Codat was, we need to make those holes and we need to fix those pipes because
before they fall apart.
Before they fall apart. So I know it's difficult downtown, but ultimately, I feel like it's my responsibility for the future. And if I just say whatever, we'll do it later, it's not going to work. And I feel like we've been improving. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but in terms of managing the different sites. And sometimes when it comes to water pipes, I'm not an expert, but if you look how it connects and the connectors at intersection, and we're trying to minimize impact, but it needs to be done. And I know it's not a great story. It's not sexy for me. Like, construction don't get you votes, by the way. Eh?
Yeah,
Those
no
pipes
kidding.
doesn't get, no, but I'm serious. Yeah. And I'm just like, we have to do it.
Construction doesn't get you votes. Ain't that the truth?